So anyway, that's all I have for the presentation. I'm going to move into the actual demonstration. So let me pull up my screens here. And I've got my various folders here. So let me go into day 2. And on the website, I've got, I'll go ahead and show it real quick. So on the website, I've already got the videos from yesterday posted. And then for day 2, I have this presentation I just gave, and then 2 different data sets, one for the Weir, one for the robo mount data. And when you open those up, they all go inside of a day 2 folder and look something like that. So let's go ahead and start with the Weir. We're going to go into Start Files, and I'll just bring this CMS project right into the interface. And so you see here, by default, we've got the bathymetry showing. It looks like in this gray outline is the activity classification. So these are your inactive cells right there. We also have the boundary conditions set here. And in this case, we are using just a water level forcing. And then I can zoom in and show you, get a little bit closer to this Weir. And so what we need to do is to, I'll just go ahead and create a folder here, or another file that I'm going to name advanced.cmcards. And I'll just start editing this as I need to. So I'm just going to sneak this in down there and keep track of the cells that I'm going to be selecting for this particular case. And so if I remember correctly, let me just go ahead and pull this up over here. We're looking at cells, let me turn on the activity, basically starting right about here. So this is 16.864, and you might have an outline that's already been generated from ArcGIS or something like that of this Weir. You can pull that in and have that to go by. You could draw a feature arc for yourself if you wanted to. In my case, I'm just going to start writing these down. So I'm just going to make note of these, 18.864, and then check the next one, and that is 16.865. And you just keep doing this for every cell that is going to be used for these 2 Weirs. And I'm not going to do the whole thing, but this is basically, right now, the process that we have to do. All right, it's very tedious. There's a lot of keeping track of cells and other information. So anyway, this is kind of what the process is that you would go through and do. The next thing that you would have to do is, once you're finished with that, is to figure out what different parameters and things like that that you're going to need. And so this is basically from the presentation what I have here. And so I'll go over this again. I'm not going to finish this out, but you would basically change this and make sure it's in the right format. You don't have to worry about the spacing or anything like that, but just have the values in here. And then you would finish out that cells line. Then you would give the distribution coefficient if it was needed. for every cell, give the orientation, so you would be looking at your grid, and so the inside is the inlet, the outside is the bay, and so this particular weir going along here would have a southerly name given to it. And so that orientation would be 3 for both of those. Anyway, you would just keep through all of these things, set it up, and then save your file, and then place that file whenever you export your grid. So one of the next things you need to do is make sure that your model control is set up. And so I believe all of this is already set up for you guys. Some of these might be modified a little bit. Just change this a little bit. Make sure that you have the bottom friction data set selected, whether or not you're running with sediment transport, other options, make sure all of that is done. And then you would go through here and then save, export. So I'm just going to go through here and save this project to a certain location, and I'm just going to make another folder here just as a test folder so I don't overwrite anything else. So I'll save this out. And then look at that folder so that you can see what is in there. So if we go in here, we have the data sets. Right now, this grid only has one data set other than the depth, that's Manning's End, and so that's there. When we get to the rubble mound, we'll have all the other data sets listed here, and I'll show you that. And then once we do a export, it creates another set of folders for the simulation, and then it starts writing out the files that are needed for CMS. So it's still working here. All right, and now it's finished. And so this is the directory that we would add or move that advanced.cm cards file to. I have a working version of this already set up. So if you look under final files, then I've got all of this already set up for you. And as you see here, I have 6 cases. This first one that we were working on was the base case, and you can see the an example of the advanced.cm cards file here that we set up. So I've got all that there, and then I chose to just change the simulation label to base, just because I didn't feel like going back in and rewriting and re-exporting from this CM cards file. But you can do whatever you would like. Just know that any file that you, or any cards and values that you add to the CM cards, advanced.cm cards file, are done after the main parameter file. So if anything is duplicated in this, it will overwrite the values in the main parameter file. So anyway, we've got the run set up, and then we could basically go in here and launch. And so let me just load in this particular project that I've already got set up for you guys. So I'll load this up. I also mentioned yesterday going to our wiki and grabbing the latest executable. Let me show you that. I forgot to show you the process of getting that set up, so I'll do that now once things start showing up here again. All right, so on the wiki, we have a documentation portal. We have on the right-hand side a link to CMS releases, and I actually just updated this morning with a couple of small little bug fixes that I found when I was working on the rubble mound stuff. So there's now an update 12 here. So you would just go down here and grab this executable or this zip file, download it to your machine, and save it to a directory that's allowed to be written to. ACID, you can't write to your program files directory, so you have to put it somewhere else. So wherever you place this zip file and extract these files, remember where that is, because you're going to need to know where that links in the next step. And so we would open that up and extract it. But then we would need to come into SMS and tell SMS where that executable is. So that's under Edit, Preferences, File Locations, scroll down for CMS Flow, and then click here to browse, and then you would go through the normal window to find where you stored or you wrote that executable file when you downloaded it. So I've got it connected in right here for me. And then when I go through and run SMS or these particular simulations, launch them, it uses the correct executable for that. So as you see in this particular project that I loaded, I went ahead and got all the 6 different cases put together. So I've added 6 different simulations here, given them different names so that they show up in the folders accordingly. And you can separate those out and figure out which advanced CM cards file goes with which case. And in each case, I have a slightly different set of cards here. And so in this case, I believe the distribution coefficient is smaller. Before it was 0.95, now it's 0.76. In the next one, I have different flow coefficients. And anyway, there were 6 different iterations that I went through, a couple different methods that were used. And so I've set all those up, and they're right here in the simulations, and I can go through one at a time and launch these. In 13.0 and after, when you launch a run, it actually puts things into a run queue. And so it's over here running. And I can go back into SMS and actually launch the next one. And this number up here at the top of this run queue tells me how many of these cases I can really run at the same time. So if you're short on processors, you might change that down to 2 or whatever. And then when you run, tell the next one to launch, it goes ahead and sticks it in there. And if it's still within the allowed number, then it will go ahead and start it. And so now I have 2 of these runs going at the same time. So anyway, that's basically how you would go through. When it's done, this abort will change to load solution. You would load those up and then pull that information in and then go. So just for now, I'm just going to abort these. And for these cases, I have the solutions already done for you. And they are all stored here. So if you want to look at this later on, I'm not going to really go into this right now. But if you wanted to bring in some of these results and kind of visualize and see what was going on with these cases, then you can do that. Or just run them yourself and see what kind of an answer you get. All right, and so that is the Weir cases.